Welcome to the Building Up Women in Property podcast. I'm your host, Rebecca Bangura, and I'm thrilled to have you join us today. Whether you're a woman aiming to become a confident, impactful leader, or you're a leader committed to promoting gender equity in the property and construction industry, this podcast is designed specifically for you. Join me every week to gain insights and inspiration that will leave you excited and confident about taking your next steps. Thank you for tuning in. Now let's dive into today's topic. Last week, I was having a conversation with a very well-connected and very influential woman in the property and construction industry. And we were talking about how far we have come over the last decade. And, this shift in terms of more opportunities than ever for women in the industry, in terms of how do we attract them, how do we retain them, and how do we get them into leadership positions. And obviously, this is the work that I love to do. But we were talking about how despite having lots of opportunities in the form of awards and sponsorships, we still see that women are not stepping forward to nominate themselves for these opportunities. And that's despite having the highest proportion of women in the industry that we ever have had, and despite the recognition and acknowledgement of the need to change the culture within our industry to be more inclusive of women and of people who do not fit the stereotypical mold of the boys' club within the industry. And we were talking about the reasons for this, and we're talking about imposter syndrome, which is the phenomenon where you don't feel like you've earned the achievements that you have. And that is obviously something that a lot of people experience. I think, it's something like 82% of people experience imposter syndrome. 75% of women in leadership roles experience it for sustained periods of time. It is a really prevalent and really challenging issue, which impacts women's confidence and can really hinder their action and their desire to progress further. And I've actually done a podcast on this way back in the early days. I think it's, one of the first sort of few podcasts we did, but I'll link it in the show notes. I think if that's something you're experiencing, you need to start to work through that. It's really important because it can become a downward spiral if it's not kept in check. I think we talk about imposter syndrome. I think we talk about a lack of confidence quite a lot. But what we don't talk about enough is self-worth. And I think self-worth is one of the crucial elements that we need in order to get more women into leadership roles and to get more women visible and seeking more opportunities and exposure for themselves. And it is distinct from self-confidence or self-esteem. When we are talking about self-worth, we are thinking about that sense of our own value as a person. And it's irrespective of external circumstances or other people's opinions. It's the feeling that you deserve to be treated with respect and dignity and to have all the opportunities available to you. So it's much more connected to our inherent value as a human being and less about what we achieve or what we do or how we're recognized. But without having that self-worth, without having that inherent belief that we should have every opportunity in the world, that we are equal, that we do deserve a shot at things, without that, we quite simply shy away from the opportunities in front of us. We don't put our hands up for things. And I tell you, this idea of self-worth comes up in the work I do with so many people. It comes up in the leadership programs I run. It comes up in the coaching that I do. And of course, we never stop to think about it in these terms for ourselves. It's only when we are talking to someone else and we reflect back certain messages and certain ideas that we can start to see that we have this block around what our self-worth is. And this idea about who we are and what we deserve and what we're entitled to, they're entrenched in the programs we run in our own heads that sorts through our 70,000 thoughts every day. It is an underlying script, a narrative that guides how we perceive the world and our place in the world. And it is no surprise that women in our industry struggle with this. Over the last few weeks, we've been talking about the systemic challenges that women face and the hard truth that women and men have not been viewed as equal for the majority of history. And even now we have this disparity between the worth of men and the worth of women. And that is, in essence, what the gender pay gap demonstrates. And this is why we don't see stay-at-home parents, which of course are usually mothers, being seen as valuable contributors to our economy, despite the function being crucial. And it's why we see the motherhood penalty compared to the fatherhood bonus. And my point is that we have these systemic issues and they are how we have grown up. It is how we have perceived the world. And as such, our internal programs that filter our thoughts, that shape our thinking, they are constructed around a narrative of women's place being different to that of men. And it's no surprise that we have issues then around our self-worth. And one of the telltale signs I see is when women attribute their success to their mentors or their sponsors or their coaches or any of the other people around them, instead of owning their success and stepping onto the platform to accept that limelight. And of course, that's not to say that you shouldn't acknowledge the contribution of others, but the contribution of others should in no way make you indebted to them. And similarly, by accepting an award, by getting a promotion, by getting a sponsorship or a scholarship, in accepting these awards, it is not about how you will pay it forward for others. It does not need to be about the collective good. It can just be your moment. It can just be about recognition for your contribution. And I think without that self-worth and that ability to recognize your own inherent value, it makes what is already a tough industry for women so much tougher. And I think of it as being a trifecta of factors that we need in order to achieve success as a woman in the property and construction industry. And I think the first part is around self-worth and purpose and knowing who you are and what you want to do, what success looks like for you on your terms without anyone else's judgment, without anyone else's validation, without anyone else's opinion. Just knowing in yourself where you are, who you are, and where you're going. This first part is really tied to authenticity, knowing yourself, knowing your style, knowing how you want to show up in the world, and having that clarity and that clear focus in order to get there. And I think we don't spend enough time delving into ourselves to really explore this. And I think this is often why we see people achieving great things but not feeling satisfied, because they don't think they're worthy of it and their achievements are not aligned with their own sense of self. And, this was definitely what I experienced in my career. The second part of the trifecta is around confidence. It is about that capability and that self-assurance and that resilience to show up and do the work and to keep growing into the role. And that's, of course, where we see imposter syndrome really tied into these issues. And the third piece of the puzzle is around visibility. It's about having people see what you do. It's about speaking up and sharing your ideas and owning your ideas. It's about building credibility and recognition. And it's only when we have a clear self-worth and a sense of purpose, coupled with confidence and visibility, that is when we can have the biggest impact. That is when we can show up and be assertive and have that strong, grounded presence. It's when we have influence and it's when we have opportunities present themselves. And as with all of these things, becoming a leader, becoming the person we want to be, it's a process. It doesn't just happen overnight. It's not something that we can just read a book or do a course or flick a light switch and step into this new version of ourselves. It just doesn't work like that. It's something we have to do the work on. It is a process, but it is a necessary one, because until we have that internal, inherent sense of self-worth, I don't think it matters what accomplishments we achieve or what recognition we have. We will always feel unfulfilled and inadequate. And we need to keep doing the work every day on this. And there's a quote from Indra Nooyi, who is the former CEO of PepsiCo, where she said, what I've learned over the years is that if you have confidence in your own ability, you'll be fine. It's your attitude, your self-confidence, and your self-worth that leads you to success. And no one else can do the work for us here. We have to own this for ourselves. And I wanted to share this with you because no matter where you are in your career or where you are in your professional journey, you have the right to be here, and your contribution is important. It is needed. We need more different voices in this space, in our sector. We need people from all walks of life, all genders, all orientations, all backgrounds to make this the most vibrant and sustainable and profitable and successful industry it can be. And I want to encourage you to step out of your comfort zone, to really explore your own relationship with your self-worth, and to get to a point where you are putting yourself in the spotlight, where you are stepping out of your comfort zone and seeking out opportunities to grow, to be recognized, and to be an example of what incredible women like you are doing in our industry. Because there are so many incredible women who really are changing the game. But if we don't share those stories, if we don't share those stories with each other, if we don't create new role models and new examples of what's possible, we're doing a disservice to every little girl out there, to every woman who is thinking about this industry as a possibility. And so I want you to think about this. I want you to reflect on this a little bit and to really understand your relationship with your self-worth and if it's holding you back. And think about that trifecta again, right? This is the framework I take all my clients through to really make sure we dig deep in all of these areas and we really bust through the myths and the long-held beliefs that no longer serve them in order to move them into that next iteration of themselves, in order to be that next version of ourselves. And I know that your contribution matters. So please don't shy away from the opportunities. Put your hand up, step forward. Stop waiting for someone else to validate you or recognize you, because you'll be waiting a long time. And as I said, we need more incredible women like you doing what you are doing. You have got this. Thanks for joining me on the Building Up Women in Property podcast. If you're listening on Apple Podcast or Spotify, I'd love for you to take a moment and review the show if you found it helpful, or share it with a few friends. Thanks again, have a beautiful day, and I'll see you next time.